Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are on a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event.
Welcome to WHW Monday. Tony Schiavone and Conrad Thompson.
Jim Crockett for Starrcade, 605 NWA. TV title, Cajun Omni, the Bunkhouse Stampede. Flair and Horseman, Garvin, Bogey, Magnum, Dusty, Express Tag Teams. Turner, Bond, and Mid-South Joint World Championship Wrestling.
Talking about the great years of World Championship Wrestling, the NWA, and Jim Crockett Promotions.
Tony and Friends North, they win. Look, Schiavone's back again. World title split off, center stage, Bischoff. Disney, Hogan, and Nitro. New World Order and The Crow. Thunder, Russo, Arquette Champ, Vinnie Mac, simulcast. Tony's back with Conrad, not your classy podcast. Watch along, try not to laugh. Lowest rules, cat back. This wasn't the initial plan. Tom Zigg's a good-looking man. Klondike Bill, make a chant. Tommy, you come over here.
What happened when? WHW Monday. And now, let's go to the ring. And here's your co-host. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to What Happened When? With the voice of your childhood, Tony Schiavone. Tony, what's going on, man? How are you?
Hey, Conrad, how you been, buddy? I hope you and your family had a great Thanksgiving. Last week, we've made it through that, and now here we are in the month of December. Hopefully make it through that and put this real shitty piece of shit, no good motherfucking year behind us.
Well, speak for yourself, Tony. It's been the best year of my life.
It's been the best year of my life, too.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, we got to look at the bright side here. Listen, it's been a challenging year. It's been a different year, but ain't no hill for a climber. We're going to go ahead and show 2020 who's boss, go out with a big bang here. And 2021, we're going to let the good times roll, man. I'm going to be positive.
Yeah, I got to write that down. Hold on here. Ain't no hill for a climber. Is that an Alabama-ism?
I think my dad's the first person I ever heard say that, but I really liked it.
Well, I like it too, because I like your dad. He's a good guy.
By the way, you came up this past Thanksgiving. Dad was over and he said, how's that announcer buddy that you do the show with? I said, you mean the voice of wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross? He's like, no, not the good one, the other one. Eric Bischoff, the guy who hosted Nitro. No, not the good looking one. The one,
the nice one, the one that knows how to put shit together.
You know, what's funny?
The one that tolerates your bullshit.
That's the way he said the real nice guy. And I said, Arn Anderson. He's like, no. Either way though, you're still everybody's favorite here at the Conradison.
How a couple of real nice people like your mom and dad, nice people, salt of the earth. And I'm saying that realistically, not like that piece of shit MJF. How these two wonderful people from Alabama had such a contrary piece of shit like you is amazing.
It really is, you know?
Yeah, it is. I'm just like, wow.
They're really blessed. What can I say? Yeah. Boys and girls, we're going to have so much fun today. I really love talking about this weird time in professional wrestling, specifically
weird time.
November 26th, 1988. Originally, I had mistakenly thought this was a week after. The week after covers the aftermath. We're actually going to see the attack today. What attack, you say? Arguably the most famous attack in wrestling history up to this point. November 26, 1988. Dusty Rhodes is going to meet his demise with Jim Crockett Promotions / Ted Turner / the NWA / World Championship Wrestling. And it's something he did all on his own.
Yeah. It's something that, I don't know if Dusty thought he was invincible or if Dusty thought, fuck him. I don't know what he was thinking here, but it certainly got him fired. However, as you and I found out the week later, he does address it on TV. So I don't know if he got fired immediately or not, because he was on the next week's TV show. So I don't know exactly when the firing happened as relation to when this happened, because we normally taped live to tape, which means we would tape Saturday morning and it would air Saturday night. So,
well, let me clear that up.
Okay.
Dusty is here. I mean, even through the end of the year, the last show of the year is December 30th. He's still on the card.
Okay.
What he's getting fired from, and I guess he's technically not fired, and boy, we're tomato here. He resigned on November 30th as the head booker of the NWA in a move forced by TBS executives. His position was filled by Jim Crockett. Process what we're talking about. There's so many moving parts. I can't wait to dig into it. We're going to try to watch the show and give you some context together. Fire up your WWE network, watch along with us. Now, I want to give you a heads up. When you first play this, it's going to say, the old disclaimer from WWE, presented in as complete a form as possible or whatever. They had some sort of technical error with the tapes. So you're not going to fast forward that. It's a couple seconds. We'll just watch it together. No big deal. And then we'll get going. But it's November 26th, 1988. So if you have the network, and I hope you do, click in-ring, scroll down until you see World Championship Wrestling, select 1988 from the drop down, scoot down just a little bit, and you'll see November 26, 1988. It says it has a runtime of 1 hour and 24 minutes. And notice how this is rated, Tony. TV 14.
Yeah, I guess that's what the WWE people thought it needed to be because of the gouge in the eye. Or who knows what they were thinking.
I want to give you a little context too, just so you know what we're talking about here. This is a month before Starrcade. Normally, whenever you're talking about Starrcade in this era, you're talking about a pay-per-view that happened in November. That's no longer the case. Now we have moved it because we are, afraid of Vince McMahon fucking us with Survivor Series. And our entire business has had to change a little bit because he's come after us. So now Starrcade happens on December 26th, the day after Christmas, 1988. So what we're watching is exactly 1 month prior to Starrcade. I guess we should also give a little more context. Dusty Rhodes has been the head booker here since Starrcade 83. And while he wasn't on the card, he was running things behind the scenes, and you were there for that show. That was, I think, one of your first big shows, if not your very first show.
First one.
And you were probably shocked to see Dusty in the back because he wasn't advertised on the card, right?
Shocked to see him because I had never seen him nor met him before. And I was a big fan of his growing up. So it was a big deal. Yeah.
So he's running things, and obviously Crockett's going to have their best year in 84. They're going to beat it in 85. They're going to get shot out of a fucking cannon in 86. They're so over. And that's all because now they're all over cable TV. And we're going to cover all of 86 next year here on WHW. And I got to tell you, Tony, I got great feedback from that announcement. I saw lots of people talking about it, and I didn't see one not one negative tweet. And that's pretty rare when it's almost unanimous that people like a decision. I thought we'd get a little pushback, not talking about some of the silliness of ECW and whatnot, but folks are really excited about 86, dude.
Yeah, so am I. I think it's a great decision, and I'm excited about doing it. I'm perplexed in that not one negative tweet. Negative is what Twitter's all about.
Right.
Negativity, the sewer, bullshit artists, pieces of shit. Huh. Okay. Well, good. That's good. Maybe it's a new trend. Maybe we're going to start the new trend on Twitter that all the negative people are going to be put in a space shuttle and thrown into space, never to return.
Well, 1986 is the best of times. Unfortunately, 1987 is perhaps the worst of times. We're now in a real fight, a dog fight with Vince McMahon. We're trying to counter program. He's trying to counter program us. WrestleMania 3 is a juggernaut. Pay-per-view is a thing. And as we've talked about before, Starrcade 87 is maybe the beginning of the end. Starrcade leaves Greensboro. They sell less tickets. They have Ron Garvin as the champ, but most importantly, now they've got all this newfound debt from Bill Watts and his struggling promotion. Well, failing promotion, but they felt like they were in a negotiation process that they had to beat Vince McMahon. And at this era, 87, everybody is wondering who's going to come out on top. Vince McMahon, who certainly has a head start and he's got mainstream, or Jim Crockett, who most people believe has the better in-ring product. And so when it feels like Watts is going to sell to somebody, Crockett doesn't want it to wind up in the hands of Vince McMahon. So he leaps without looking, so to speak, and winds up signing up for a bunch of debt and a bunch of new overhead and a bunch of wrestlers who weren't exactly drawing. And he bought a dead territory with a bunch of debt, but it was a big enough distraction that now, maybe allegedly, according to the rumor and innuendo, they thought, hey, they being Jim and Dusty, we're going to be big Hollywood stars now. We've got offices in Texas. We're going to move out there and we're going to be making films. 1988, they take their eye off the ball and they start losing even more money than they did with Starrcade 87. And one by one, people start to jump ship and you start to see everybody that you loved on Jim Crockett show up for Vince McMahon, whether it's Arn Anderson or Tully Blanchard, of course, Big Boss Man, on and on. Even Ron Garvin, who just headlined your big show and was the world champion. So 1988 is a very challenging year. That's when Crockett discovers, hey, we have no money. We're upside down. We're screwed. What are we going to do? So he starts to work a deal to perhaps sell the property to Ted Turner. Along the way, they interview a lot of folks, including Tully Blanchard, they being the Turner folks, and supposedly Tully doesn't toe the line and manages to piss off a lot of people in the Crockett organization with what he told the Turner folks, and he's kicked off the jet. Well, that goes over like a turd in a punch bowl, especially when Tully doesn't feel like he's been compensated fairly. And he decides, you know what? Let's just see if we can get a deal somewhere else. And Arn and Tully are out of here and the Horsemen are no more. That story in and of itself, Tony, is a sign that, the wheels are coming off the bus. Is it not?
I think it says it all. I think when you say the Horsemen are no longer here, I think that says everything, doesn't it? Weren't we kind of built in many ways around the Horsemen? Without question.
You know, it's the Horsemen versus somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Well, obviously Flair is upset too. His pals are leaving. He's not happy with the way they've had to put over, they being the Horsemen have had to put over Dusty every single night. He doesn't like the way Dusty's been making him look. And now Dusty and Flair, once upon a time, who were big friends, are huge rivals behind the scenes. And I don't think that can be overstated here, to the point that Dusty's idea, and it gets out, you know, what Dusty wants to do at Starrcade. He wants Rick Steiner to beat him in minutes and become the world champion. He also wants Flair to cut his hair and get an earring, change his look. Now, a lot of that over the years got dumped on the shoulders of Jim Herd, but really it came down from a pissing contest with Dusty and Rick before Herd was ever here. Isn't that the way you heard it?
No, not at all. I didn't hear it that way. I remember during a meeting, Jim Herd actually talking about Flair cutting his hair and wearing a diamond ring.
Again, that's later.
Okay.
I just want to give
the first time I had heard it from somebody. I had no knowledge of Flair cutting his hair until I heard it from Jim Herd. And when I heard it from Jim Herd, I remember thinking, holy shit, what are we doing?
As a reminder, you know when that came up though?
When I came back in 1990.
Once Dusty comes back from Vince McMahon. So Dusty here is pulling, what we're about to watch is Dusty pulling double duty.
Gotcha.
And this is going to be one of those moments that even in early 88, at the beginning of the year, and you told us this on an older episode, we're watching the old Bunkhouse pay-per-view. And you said you remember a line from the end of the night from Tully Blanchard. Share that with us.
The line was, maybe Dusty Rhodes ought to book himself against Dusty Rhodes, and therefore he would never lose.
So there's a lot of frustration amongst the talent, most notably the Horsemen, Ric Flair, and of course it trickled down to everybody else, that Dusty should not be an in-ring performer and a booker. And a lot's been said about that over the years, not just Dusty, but with everyone who tried to do both. And most people came to the conclusion it doesn't work. Where do you land on that, Tony?
I remember honestly thinking, especially after that line by Tully at the Bunkhouse Stampede, and during that time, that maybe it was time for Dusty to not work anymore, because it came. I had often heard the old adage that bookers will book themselves on top for two reasons. Number one, because of ego, but number two, because that they feel that in their head, they have the way a certain angle on top should go. And they feel that the best way to do it is for them to do it themselves instead of telling someone what to do or laying it out. Go ahead and do it yourself. I've been told that. And I think most of us felt that Dusty needed to pay more attention to everything else on the card instead of just himself and where it was going. Listen, I don't think there was any question. And I was a Dusty supporter. Very much so. He was my friend. But I don't think there was any question that when Luger did not go over during that Bunkhouse Stampede we talked about, we were all shocked. I was sitting there absolutely stunned because it was almost, and you know, I didn't go over finishes in the back, but it was almost common knowledge to everybody that Luger either was going to go over or should have gone over. And I remember thinking as the match went on, I'm thinking, is Dusty going to put himself over in this? And he did. And that's later that night where Tully came up with a line. And that's where I thought that maybe that, you know, that Dusty should not book anymore or should not wrestle anymore and just book.
Well, and that's ultimately what the NWA decides they want to do, specifically Ted Turner. And a lot of that comes down out of, I believe, frustration. I think people have been overly critical, and Lord, we're probably guilty of this too at times here on the show. Dusty Rhodes doesn't perhaps get enough credit for all of the innovation that he brought. He pumped new life into Jim Crockett Promotions. And I think his creativity, along with the penetration of the TBS situation, allowed them to become the second biggest wrestling promotion in all the land. Let's not forget the fact that he was once upon a time one of the top drawing cards in the world. It was Hulk Hogan and Dusty Rhodes, legitimately. And now he's obviously got an idea of what works and what doesn't work. He starts with Starrcade. He does War Games. He does the Great American Bash. Man, we're off to the races. He also is the guy who says, hey, Sting, Clash of the Champions, let's go. Clash of the Champions, another Dusty idea. Just saying, there's so many big Dusty positives that I think sometimes people gravitate towards it's a Dusty finish. And I get it. We've done that stuff here too. But I do think there's something to be said about not only wearing both hats of being a wrestler and a booker and how that can be challenging, but burnout, Tony. Burnout has to be real. Like you look back through the great booking periods through wrestling, and it feels like everybody has, I don't know the number. Is it 2 years? Is it 3 years? Is it 4 years? Is it 5 years? But eventually they just need a break. It becomes a real thing. And I don't know that that's completely fair to Dusty to not acknowledge that. Like, you have to appreciate this isn't a TV show, right, Tony? You don't have 13 weeks a year of shooting TV. It's 52 weeks a year. And it's not like you're doing it in a studio. You're in a different town every day. This is a totally unique concept that there would be someone who did both 52 weeks a year.
Yeah. And there was, Dusty, I don't think Dusty worked 52 weeks a year.
No.
As far as,
bumping,
as far as bumping. Right. I had compared to, this is stupid, but I really compared to this. I compared to air traffic controllers.
Yeah.
They burn out because of all the pressure that they are on a daily basis. And I could see the pressure on Dusty. I saw the pressure on Dusty during this time. I saw the pressure on Dusty back when he took the job later on and Bill Watts came aboard and was the boss. I saw the pressure then. Bill Watts really put the pressure on you. And so I get it. And I think that was part of me thinking that maybe that Dusty should step away from bumping because the pressure was getting to him, and it was.
We should also mention your analogy of the air traffic controller. I think what you're talking about specifically is the required breaks. Like you can work for like 2 hours, but then you have to take a 30-minute break.
Right.
I know that sounds silly, but the idea is this is very important. People's lives are at stake here and you've got to be on. And if you can't be on, then you're putting people's lives at risk. And I think it's a similar analogy that you're making that, hey, this requires a certain level of attention to detail. And then, every now and again, you've got to take a break. And maybe that's part of it. Maybe Dusty is doing this out of frustration. Maybe it's, anger. Maybe it's also in a weird way, just like a cry for help. Like, God damn, just let it be over. I'm tired of this. And he makes a decision and we're going to watch it here. And it's happening on November 26, 1988. Tony, I've got mine fired up, rip roaring, ready to go. You want to do us a little bit of a countdown? Should we tag in a friend? What are you thinking?
Let's tag in one of our friends from Patreon and get the countdown rolling. You ready?
I'm ready when you is.
Hi, Adam Marpin here, a proud glass-bottom boat rider in the sea of what's happening when. Before we get started, I'd like to share a nugget of wisdom my uncle shared with me many years ago. When it comes to life, don't sweat the petty things and don't pet the sweaty things. And with that, on with the show. 3, 2, 1, play.
I like petting sweaty things. It's worked out for me. Just throwing it out there. Here we go. Track it.
Starrcade 88, the Stinger. He will be ready, and he has a score to settle, no doubt, with the Road Warriors. Wait.
Wow. I got to ask you, we haven't talked about this before. Do you prefer the Road Warriors as heels or baby faces?
Baby faces.
I did too.
I think they were baby fat. I don't think I don't think they were ever heels.
Because you want to cheer them. They're cool. Let's track it here.
WA, and I'm Tony Schiavone along with Jim Ross and David Crockett, and welcome to World Championship Wrestling ringside with a Major League of Professional Wrestling. Right off the bat, the World Heavyweight Champion, Nature Boy Ric Flair is here, the U.S. Champion Barry Windham, Bam Bam Bigelow is here, and also here today for the first time since the split in this TV studio, the American Dream Dusty Rhodes is here, plus here today, the Legion of Doom, the Road Warriors saw at the top of the program. I know they have a lot to talk about, David.
That's right. I get to talk to the Road Warriors. Also, I'm going to talk to the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. And also, a man that I really like, Rick Steiner. What about Starrcade? It's coming up.
Starrcade's coming up, and we'll have a very special Starrcade update in the next 2 hours. And plus, we're going to address the situation involving the United States Tag Team Tournament that'll, of course, happen on December the 7th in Chattanooga.
And we're going to address that situation during this match. So why don't we go to the ring?
3-man booth. How bad did you and Jim hate this?
We're used to it by now.
No. I don't mean now in 2020.
No, I'm saying by now, because we've been doing this for about a year.
But still, Jim Ross talking third, I'm sure that's just all under his skin.
Well, I don't know. Here's the deal. Once the matches started, it was me and Jim.
Right.
David just did the interviews. So I know what you're saying. Jim talking third, me opening up. I think Jim allowed that. And
oh, wait, let's hear Eddie Gilbert here. Track it.
Okay.
Where the Sheepers took out the foreign object, hit Ron Simmons over the head, and won the match. But now it looks like Ron Simmons and Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert are going to the finals against the Fantastics for the U.S. Tag titles on December the 7th. And Ron, I told you, I'm going to make you a champion. And what we got to do, we got to pull everything out. We got to do whatever we can to be the tag team champions.
Yeah, I agree with you, brother. But on one thing, the people pay to come to see good, wholesome, clean wrestling. And that's what we're going to give them. The Fantastic have been a long-time friends of mine and yours at this point now, right?
Yeah.
But when they get into that ring, brother, it's going to be all wrestling. Everything's going to go because we are going to go all out after those belts, brother. We want to win that tournament.
Boy, not the best Ron Simmons promo we ever saw, but we don't see a lot of hot stuff promos. So I wanted to track it. And what I was really excited about is it's one of the innovations, if you will, that they're copying from Vince McMahon. That little picture in a picture where we'd throw to a promo, that was really common in the WWF, but it wasn't common just yet here in Jim Crockett.
There was a lot of things that the WWF did that set the standard that, one of the things that we should have done and we were way behind on. And one of the reasons we were way behind on it was because, again, it was a mom and pop organization, a very small organization compared to what was up in Stamford, Connecticut, was marketing. And what I mean by marketing is, I guess I mean merchandising, things like that. They did a couple of Horseman things. They had a Horseman logo, but why didn't they have one for everybody? I mean, today everybody's got merch, right? Everybody who appears on TV,
right?
And I know it's different. I know you can get shirts made quickly now, and things turn around a lot faster than they were back in 1988. But it just did not have, with the exception of Dusty's creative mind and thinking big, as Dusty would like to. I'm sure that they weren't thinking big at Jim Crockett Promotions. And I don't think they were thinking big because they thought this was enough to think big. We're on TBS. We're on the biggest, we're 6:05 on Saturday night. It's been the standard forever. And maybe they thought that was enough, but amazing, isn't it? We got a Hall of Famer as a referee here.
Yeah. Old Peanut Head. I want to remind everybody that this sale from Crockett to Turner was finalized earlier this month. So we're, 3 or 4 weeks, well, less than 4 weeks. We're 3 weeks and change into a transfer of power, if you will. They finally, agreed to terms. Turner is going to pay Crockett $9 million and take his wrestling business. And so now we've got a TV company. We should also mention the month prior in October, Turner named a general manager for all of his television products, and that's Jack Petrick. So he's essentially in charge of Turner programming. Petrick was big pals from back in the day in St. Louis with Jim Herd. Petrick ran one TV station in St. Louis. Herd ran another. They both got together and worked with Ted Turner on an independent television project. And Petrick knew that Herd had been working with Wrestling at the Chase and had done wrestling in St. Louis and understood the TV business. So since he knew, liked, and trusted Herd, they started to have conversations, but none of those conversations were necessarily disclosed to Jim Crockett. Jim Crockett was, while he had sold his wrestling business, still going to stay on in a different position where he would essentially help lead the wrestling division. So no, I'm not necessarily running the business, and no, I'm not necessarily running TV, but I know this unique form of entertainment, professional wrestling, and I can make sure that we're putting on compelling stories and building characters and things like that. So the team, for as long as anybody could remember, had been Jim Crockett and Dusty, and people were very critical of that relationship at times. A guy named Steve Beverly wrote a lot about this in Matt Watch, his newsletter. So this is another newsletter sort of in the same vein as the Observer or the Torch. And,
yeah, but this one sucked, but go ahead.
Well, Matt Watch had a lot to say. The next week, just before Thanksgiving, my phone rang on Tuesday morning after Matt Watch had arrived in the Turner offices. "How did you get that information?" my source said. "I hate to tell you you're right, and it's causing some real problems." "Why? Because I'm right?" "No," the Turner executive said, "because they haven't told Crockett yet. Plus, it might help me if you told Jack I wasn't the one who told you, because he thinks he suspects it. But you didn't tell me," I said. "In fact, I reported it because it was told to me." Herd was coming in almost as a nonchalant, "Surely you know this" kind of thing. When are they going to tell Crockett? "Soon, to be careful about this. It's real sensitive." "Okay. But if they're just going to move out Crockett, what about Dusty?" A lot of people feel Crockett's real problem had not in fact been Crockett, but the fact that he stuck with Dusty so long as Booker. People are fed up with his screw job finishes at the arenas, and you already know about TV. "I can't talk to you about that," I was told. And that's when he finds out we're definitely moving Starrcade to the week after Christmas. Quote, "They didn't want to do it, but we told them they had to if we're going to get to clearing the cable homes." So the stage is set. And one person even tells Steve Beverly, and this is a big, important piece of business here. They lied to Crockett. They absolutely lied. They led him to believe he would still be in charge, and they knew all along they were bringing in Jim Herd, or at least someone else. Welcome to the world of television. And the NWA's head of operations now, Jim Herd, meets with Jim Crockett for the first time on December 3rd or 4th. And Crockett was said to have had no idea he was coming in. And, this is a report from the Matt Watch. Quote, "Jimmy has more power than ever, and no one has been allowed to get near Jim Herd." And Jim Herd attends the December 8th TV taping. Now, this is all important to mention. Herd doesn't technically work here yet. He's going to start after the first of the year because he's got to get some of his benefits vested from his old deal. And that deal won't consummate until the very end of the year. So he's going to officially start on January 1st. But after Ted Turner and his folks negotiated and said, "Okay, Jimmy Crockett, you're going to handle the wrestling. We're just going to handle the business end." He thinks, "Okay, it's me and Dusty. Here we go. I'm in charge. Dusty's doing both things. He'll be my right hand in booking and obviously performing." And then it comes out, not so much. And that's perhaps when Dusty says, "Man, fuck all this. I'm going to do what I want." And maybe that's what we're seeing today. What say you?
Well, as you tell me that story, I'm beginning to realize more and more as to what happened and maybe why I left, because I think we all realized that Jimmy had been lied to. And if they were going to lie to Jimmy, they're going to lie to anybody, right?
Yeah.
We thought. So yeah, I understand. I get it. And now I know why when Jimmy found out that I was leaving for the WWF, how happy he was for me, because Jimmy obviously was very unhappy with the deal he was getting. But I believe, didn't the Crockett's not only get a buy, I mean, a $9 million, but they also got salaries, each one of them?
Yeah. They're still getting paid. And that's the thing that's worth mentioning. But also too, you got to remember this. I mean, promoting has been in Crockett's, family blood for more than 50 years.
Oh, sure.
So this is what they've always loved to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so we both know a lot of people who make a lot of money in the wrestling business today in 2020, but they're fucking miserable.
Mm-hmm.
They just are.
Yep.
But we also know other people who are in the wrestling business and don't have two nickels to rub together, but they're having a blast.
Hold on. You ready? True Grit.
Track it.
It's time for our Starrcade update. As you know, it's coming up the day after Christmas on Monday, December 26th at the Norfolk Scope Coliseum in Norfolk, Virginia. It's the big event, Starrcade 88 True Grit. We have some big announcements about Starrcade to tell you here today. First of all, the very first bunkhouse stampede will be held during Starrcade with such stars as Dr. Death, Steve Williams, Abdullah the Butcher, Dick Murdoch. We're talking about over 25 of the NWA's top stars. Come as you are. Anything goes in the ring, over the top rope, bunkhouse battle royal. And the last man standing in the ring will be considered the winner. Also, to be held during Starrcade, it's the Battle of the Midnight Expresses. The original Midnight Express with Paulie Dangerously to battle Jim Cornette's Midnight Express in what will be, no doubt, an all-out war between two fine tag teams in the NWA. Also, another great tag team match has been signed. Ivan and Nikita Koloff against Russian Assassin 1 and 2 with Paul Jones. But a special stipulation, as a matter of fact, two special stipulations. If the Russian Assassins lose in this match, they will have to unmask. In addition, if the Russian Assassins lose, Paul Jones must retire from professional wrestling. That is another stipulation. Now let's tell you about a big match still in the works. As you know, Rick Steiner and Mike Rotunda. The split has occurred in the Varsity Club ranks. Well, on the table right now, still under negotiation, hopefully to be signed next week, Mike Rotunda to defend the world television title against Rick Steiner. What a great match that will be. But also, here's a match which has been signed. It's the match of matches, the colossal event. Ric Flair, the world heavyweight champion, against the total package Lex Luger. I do understand from the offices of the NWA that next week, right here on our Starrcade update, we will have an announcement on a very special stipulation concerning Nature Boy Ric Flair and Lex Luger, the rematch for the NWA World Heavyweight title. That'll be coming up next week. So until then, we'll see you right here on the Starrcade update.
How proud are you of that piece of business?
Yeah, I kind of pretty much hammered it, didn't I? You know what? It needed graphics.
Oh, for sure.
God, I'm looking at that and say, throw me a graphic up.
Anything. Let's throw to
easy.
something.
Yeah, it's easy. I don't mind talking for that long and being able to do it without, and making it sound smooth. I don't mind that, but Jesus Christ, man, cover me up with something.
What are we talking about, Tony?
What are we talking about?
Yeah. We were in the middle of something and he said, "Oh, got an update here."
I have no idea. My Prevagen hasn't kicked in this morning.
Let's talk about the report from Matt Watch after
why are we quoting this dickhead named Steve? But go ahead.
In a situation rumored for weeks since his firing as NWA booker, Dusty Rhodes resigned from the National Wrestling Alliance after a 5-year association with Jim Crockett, only days before his contract was set to expire, January 24th. Rhodes, who won the NWA World Belt for 3 brief reigns, was reportedly being asked to turn heel as a condition of his contract renewal and balked, along with the prospect of a major reduction in his reported $580,000 salary of last year. Rhodes is headed for Mike Graham's Florida Championship Wrestling, where he will attempt to regender the following that made him a star in the 70s. The past 2 weeks, Florida viewers have seen Johnny Ace making serious challenges to Rhodes. So, of course, they're going to look for something else. And, well, they'll find it in Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. So once Dusty's out, Ricky comes back. We have a tremendous series of matches with him and the Nature Boy, and we're off to the races for Jim Herd's WCW in 1989. George Scott would also come in very briefly. They think he's going to be the long-term answer that maybe they couldn't find.
Yeah, I was at that first production meeting too. And Steamboat came back because of George Scott, right? Mm-hmm. Where George Scott brought Steamboat back, I do believe.
Yeah, that's exactly right. He had Scott and Steamboat were big friends.
Right.
They had worked together here. They had worked together for Vince McMahon. So even though he had left before, he being Steamboat, because he was frustrated with his push and positioning with Dusty Rhodes, he gives it another shot.
Right.
And I think the first time he left because he realized Dusty's not going to give me the US belt. And I think in that era, everybody thought, well, Steamboat's next in line for it. But instead he went with Magnum and Tully and his pals. So he was out of there and thought, you know, there's too many politics. I'm going to go work for Vince. And he did a great job, got over, had a huge run. He also became fast friends with George Scott. So with Dusty out and Scott in, he comes back in. Of course, you know how long that lasts. Once the Flair feud is done, they try him with Lex Luger for the US title. And he quickly is finished up there too. Feels like he's lost in the shuffle. You know, Flair's gone on and now in a feud with Terry Funk for the world title. He's working with Lex Luger for the US title. And of course, I think the excuse was always, well, I miss my family or something like that. But sometimes if Steamboat didn't like the creative, he'd go home. I know people say differently, but, pay attention. He was like the original Shawn Michaels in that regard.
Luger's an interesting story, isn't he?
Luger is one of the most interesting stories. A guy who doesn't love wrestling, who didn't grow up watching it, who was recruited from a gym to be in it because he had this look and then learns it, but he's really here to just be a professional athlete. I like to be jacked up and in good shape and look good. And now I can be compensated very, very handsomely for that. So I'm going to do it. Sting, again, you know, recruited for a certain look and gets in it through bodybuilding and power exhibitions and, you know, just sort of carnival type stuff with the Power Team USA stuff.
Yeah. But Sting had a certain, I don't know.
But yes, Sting had more of a passion for it once they got going, whereas it was very much paint by numbers for Luger. Point being, they were both recruited in similar fashions. But one guy, you know, just really wanted to do it in Sting. And one guy just really wanted to get paid a bunch of money to be an athlete and do athletic stuff. And that was Lex Luger.
Yeah.
And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I don't think Brock Lesnar is all that different. Obviously Brock Lesnar had a legitimate amateur background. I'm not saying that, but Brock Lesnar didn't grow up with posters of Junkyard Dog on his wall, you know?
Oh yeah. I get it. I understand it. And I understand how people are different. And you got to take people who are different, their different mindsets and their different feelings about the business. And you just have to roll with it. Try to make the best out of it you can. I love the old free shot. And you want to track it?
Sure. Here we go.
Tight, but these two guys, they're having a good time. A real good time. These fans
I'm tight. I think it's looking pretty tight, if you know what I'm talking about. You know what, these Road Warriors, these dudes are messing with me. These dudes tried to break my neck. Right. Yeah, they tried to break my neck, but you know why you didn't? You know why you didn't, Animal? You know why you didn't, Hawk? Because I'm me. That's why. You know what you guys are doing? You know what they're doing to people like you, Lex Luger, me, and Dusty Rhodes, and especially everybody out there? You know what they're doing? I can't say what they're doing, but that's what they're doing to all the people. I don't do that to the people, and the total package does neither, and neither does Dusty Rhodes. Woo! Greensboro's tonight. And oh, I'm just getting that view over there in the camera of tightness. And look at tight right there, too.
Oh, that's right.
You know, David Crockett, tonight, Greensboro, North Carolina. You know, Road Warriors, we've had a few matches now. I'm here to sting with you. And you know what? You know what happened? You didn't kick our butts. Look, you tell me you're gonna. A matter of fact, we've gotten the upper hand. And in Greensboro, North Carolina, the hotbed of NWA professional wrestling for many years, they're going to see firsthand what the Stinger and the Total Package can do as a tag team. And that's wreak havoc in the world of professional wrestling, and especially with the big, bad Road Warriors. Now, another thing, David, I know you want to speak to me about one other thing. It's a major, major announcement. I'm always there for Stinger. Stinger's always there for me. We never stand in each other's way.
And you know I am.
And Starrcade is the biggest show every year in the sport of professional wrestling. And I have got a match with a man who's come out here for 2 months, has ignored who's been rated as the number one contender in our sport, and that's the Total Package Lex Luger to that World Heavyweight title. Nature Boy, the NWA has mandated it. The match is going to happen in Starrcade. There's a special stipulation. I already know what it is, but a few details need to be worked out. But I can guarantee everyone out there will be a winner between Ric Flair and myself in Starrcade, 88 True Grit. Look at that Stinger, baby. Let's give it one more pose. Yeah!
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Starrcade, the day after Christmas. More action to come right after this.
How great did Lex Luger look right there?
Unbelievable.
Dude. It's unlike any other. I mean, he's probably one of the, if not the best bods in the history of wrestling. My goodness. Look like an action figure. He looked the real life He-Man.
And then we go from that to this.
Now for something totally different. An 800-pound tag team.
Yeah. Was this Ray Candy?
The Commandos. What a great name that is. You don't think?
Yeah, it is. Big old sweatpants, big old boots.
What year did the movie Commando come out with Arnold Schwarzenegger?
This could be around
85. Yeah. 85.
Okay.
But clearly that's what they're ripping off. And yeah, you're exactly right. That's Ray Candy.
Yeah.
He was your man, wasn't he?
Well, I liked Ray. Ray's a good guy, man. They, I believe Ray Candy and Leroy Brown, I don't know what his real name was. They were the Zimbabwe Express at one time under Paul Jones. Brought him in. Not sure. I'm not so sure who this guy is.
It's Grizzly Boone. It's AKA Commando Boone.
Commando Boone.
Yeah, Grizzly Boone is his other name that you're probably more familiar with.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Hey, you know, the Lex Luger interview, I don't know about you, but I'm watching, I'm saying, stop moving that hand from left to right across the screen. He drew that fucking line every time. Everybody has a crutch, right? I get it. But his is like, oh, stop making that L with your finger and your thumb.
Why does it annoy you so bad?
I don't know. I have no idea why it annoyed me so bad. But now that we've on our episodes that are in the archives, we talk about it so much, it just
stands out
like a flashing light. I don't know. That guy made a tag and was like, okay, I'm going to come in and get my ass beat.
Hey, I want to mention, they do a show later that night, what we're watching right now. It's Dusty Rhodes and Bam Bam taking on Flair and Barry Windham. The next day they film TV in TBS for the following week. So it's recorded on the 27th, aired on the 3rd.
Got it.
The night of the 27th, he was scheduled to appear, he being Dusty, in Richmond, but no-showed. There were a lot of people who missed that night. But he was in Las Vegas a couple of days later. They ran the Showboat. No, my apologies. He was not there either. He was scheduled, and Eddie Gilbert has to substitute for him. They ran the San Francisco show the following day. Dusty's not there either. Eddie Gilbert's in for him. But he would be back on TV for Clash of the Champions season's beatings. So I guess Dusty, out on the heels of this fallout from this, is going to miss a little bit. We should also mention Nikita Koloff. I think what we're watching right here, the match we just saw with him earlier.
Yeah.
I think that was his last show. Because he officially quit the promotion on the 27th.
Well, he went from a super heel to a baby face with a buzz cut.
Well, also too, who was his best friend for a long time?
Dusty Rhodes.
Dusty Rhodes. And if Dusty Rhodes has a situation here that doesn't go well, and it looks like there's going to be a reckoning and Dusty's no longer in power, I'm out of here.
Did you see Teddy Long reach across one of those guys to make the 3 count?
Wasn't that great?
They both did the double slam. Teddy goes around to make a count. Okay. One of the big guys rolls out of the way. I guess they're not going to show it on the replay. Here goes, there you see Teddy in the left. Okay. The Nature Boy is getting ready to talk.
Here we go. Track it.
Gentlemen, you've heard the news, Starrcade, Ric Flair, Lex Luger, but understand there's some special stipulations, Rick, isn't that correct?
Well, you know, I've sat here on this television program in front of millions of fans going on 10 years now. That's how long Ric Flair has been associated with Turner Broadcasting. And right now, the National Wrestling Alliance, as it does every year, is going to put together the greatest spectacular in sports. Not just wrestling, but in my estimation, the greatest spectacular in sports. Because as the wrestling world knows, and as the real smart sports fans know, the wrestlers, the big name wrestlers today make more money than any other athletes in any other sport. And right now, Jim Crockett Promotions, Turner Broadcasting, one more time, they've had James Dillon right there in the lawyer's office. They said, JJ, Flair's got to do this or the pressure's going to be on. And Jim Dillon, representing me, representing the Four Horsemen, the bottom line representing the World Heavyweight Championship, signed the contract. Then we hear, by the way, Mr. Dillon, there's going to be a special stipulation. We'll tell you and Flair about it next week. Let me explain something to you. You see, the bottom line is that I'm going to do this for all the sports fans out there that don't really have a grasp of what's going on. You talk about 2 great athletes, and as I've said before, Luger, God bless you, you got more athletic ability and more athletic skills than any man I've ever competed against. But once again, I'm going to give you your due by telling you that to be the man, regardless of all of those God-given gifts, you've got to beat the man. And the World Heavyweight Championship is the trophy. I don't care what you read about, what you hear about, what someone tries to tell you is taking place on a make-believe basis. That championship belt costs $40,000. It's the real McCoy. And I don't care if it's Mike Tyson or Sugar Ray Leonard. They both ask me for my autograph, and they both go, hey, champ, how are you? You know, and that's a feeling that very few men in the world of professional sports know anything about. To be the world champion, number one. Whether you like them or you don't like them, the bottom line is, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't get any better than this.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Ric Flair, Lex Luger, Starrcade rematch. Watch for it.
What a shitty piece of shit t-shirt that was. Did you see that?
Yes, I did. See, and there you go. There you go. That's one of the reasons we were sucking hind tit. Kind of it started out as a realistic, we're
not tracking this one. We're going to talk through this one because I don't want to put everybody to sleep. I want to mention this taping that we're seeing here. A lot of times I think fans thought this was live. This was actually taped on the 24th, which, believe it or not, in 1988 was Thanksgiving Day. So this airs on Thanksgiving, and then, or it's recorded on Thanksgiving, and it airs 2 days later, that Saturday, on the 26th. And in this era, of course, they're still running big shows on Thanksgiving night, even if Starrcade isn't here. So what they had planned was, we're going to do TV in the studio, and then that night we're going to run the Omni. And they did. The main event that night in the Omni was Sting and Lex Luger, taking on the Road Warriors. But right underneath that was Dusty teaming with Bam Bam to take on Flair and Barry Windham. So they had 8,800 folks at the Omni that evening. And, we got a long day of tapings here that ultimately is going to result in, a pretty controversial decision by Dusty. We're going to see it here momentarily, but, most people believe this was the final straw and him being replaced on the booking committee. Allegedly 300 people or more, called TBS to complain about the bloody, violent scene.
Wow.
And that was an edict that was put down specifically by Ted Turner. He didn't want any blood. He didn't want any gore. He needed to move in another direction. And somebody we haven't talked about yet, that I want to talk about is Jeff Carr. But before we get there, every time I mention Steve Beverly, you have a big reaction to that. Can you explain why you hate Steve Beverly?
I have no idea why, but for some reason, I do remember that years later, I'm going to try to get the story straight as I remember it. Years later, Jim Ross brought him in, and he met with Jim Ross, and he came up with this long list of things that we should do on TV, that Steve Beverly thought we should do on TV. And JR made copies of it and passed it around to everybody. And it kind of pissed people off. And I remember JR saying, this is just one man's opinion. Don't get pissed off about it. He works in TV, and he's got a few ideas about our TV shows. And if this works, we're going to bring him in as a consultant or something like that. And I remember all of us looking at it and thinking, who is this fucking jackoff? And I think that's where it comes from. I even remember Zbyszko saying, Jesus fucking Christ, he's a dirt sheet writer, and we're going to bring him in to help be like a consultant. And I think that's where it comes from. And I don't know when that happened. I do remember that happened when our offices were well, obviously it happened before JR left, but it was back during the Herd era. And so anyway, that's why. Just deep-rooted memories of a guy who's a jackoff. I remember a lot of jackoffs in my life.
I'm one of them.
Been around a lot of them.
I'm one of them.
No, you're a friendly jackoff.
Okay. Well, earlier I was a piece of shit who had good parents.
Well, yeah. Jackoff and piece of shit are two different things.
Oh, my bad. So let's talk about Jeff Carr.
Okay. There's another jackoff. Go ahead.
You know Jeff?
I knew him. Yeah.
Tell me about Jeff. We've never talked about him.
He came across as an arrogant know-it-all jackoff. Some people, listen, I do think, well, hell, I know, because I make an effort. I do think when you first meet me in wrestling, you walk away and say, he's a pretty friendly guy. Carr was the complete opposite. You first met him and you walk away thinking, whoa, Jesus, what a stiff piece of shit he is. Now, years later, maybe he's turned out, there's that shirt again. Maybe he's turned out to be a nice guy. Maybe he's grown, but back then he came across as, with us, that was wrestling. We were wrestling people. We came from a wrestling company, and he was a TV guy. He came across as somebody that presented as if he knew more than we would ever know about TV, which he was probably right, but also about wrestling because he was a fucking fan. And I don't want to, I probably shouldn't say fucking fan because that's right, because you shouldn't say that because fans are very, very important. But a fan does not, back then, did not know more about wrestling than Jimmy Crockett and David Crockett and Dusty Rhodes in that company. Just because he watched it on TV. But he came across as if he did. And that rubbed people the wrong way. So there you go. I really think to know this business, you got, wow, that was terrible. To know that kid took a bump before he hit him. To know the business, you got to work in it. There's so many different dynamics to the wrestling business than what you see on TV. And Jeff Carr thought he knew it all. So you bring up Jeff Carr and Steve Beverly.
Your boys.
Anybody else you want to bring up that I didn't care about?
Give us a call on this replay here, Tony.
Okay. All right. He's got to pick him up here. Now, let's take a look at this. Is going to be the, I thought it was going to be the enziguri. He already kicked him and put him down the enziguri. You see the replay in the back of the head of Sir Oliver Humperdinck. Great. Oh, take a look at this. He's going to land on his knees because he may be one of the worst job guys ever. But at least he has long hair that bounces around. Teddy Long, watching in the distance, a true.
What do you think Sir Oliver Humperdinck's saying about Thanksgiving here?
Mm-hmm. Well, David Crockett, a few things I need to say. They brought me here from Florida. As you can see on my forehead, I have a lot of marks on my forehead. And also you can tell that me and Bam Bam Bigelow are going to have a great Thanksgiving. And the reason is, David Crockett, as you can look, we have snuck a few turkeys in under our tops. Bam Bam's turkey looks like 30 pounds. Mine weighs about 20 pounds. We're going to pull them out. We're going to bring them to the Omni tonight. We're going to cook them in the backstage area. We're all going to have turkey. And don't forget, do not eat the skin because the skin is the fat part of the turkey. Don't worry about salmonella. I know how to cook a turkey. As a matter of fact, I can cook a turkey better than Conrad because Conrad puts them in a fucking smoker and puts Cajun seasoning on them, just like you would do if you were tailgating at an LSU football game. But that's not the way to cook a turkey. The way to cook a turkey is conventionally in the oven with sage and a little bit of poultry seasoning and cook it and turn it upside down so all the juices run into the to the breast of the turkey, the white meat, and therefore it's moist and much better than that. Bam Bam, he knows he doesn't have to cook a turkey. That 30-pound turkey he's got under your shirt right now, as you can see protruding. He knows how to cook it. I know how to cook it, and we're going to have a good. Are you bringing the sweet potatoes? Yes, I'm bringing the sweet potatoes because sweet potatoes are a fixture of New Jersey. That's right, New Jersey. And years from now, Joey Janela is going to know that sweet potato casserole with pecans on top of coconuts the best. That's right, David. We invite you. We invite Jim Hurd if he's here yet. Oh, shouldn't have said his name. You guys don't know anything about him. We're going to invite him to come as well. Well, hopefully somebody else will have the mashed potatoes.
Whenever I see Sir Oliver Humperdinck, is it wrong that I think of Cassio Kid?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Look who it is.
Man,
David Crockett with Ponytail Jones here. Paul Lee, let's track it.
That we are the one and the only team truly deserving of the name. Ladies and gentlemen, the lethal weapon Loverboy Dennis, the messenger of mayhem ravishing Randy, the one and the only Midnight Express.
So he's got the original Midnight Express here. I thought we were going to get a long promo. Let's talk about your boy, Jeff Carr.
Mm-hmm. First of all, I wanted to say that how many plates of food do you think Paul Lee had this past Thanksgiving?
Will you stop?
Okay, go ahead.
We're going to come back to my turkey talk too. Actually, we might do a little podcast on that called Turkey Talk. Get me and Lois on here.
Nah.
This is a big deal. Jeff Carr is a name that a lot of our fans may not be familiar with, but it's written here. He would play a major role in early changes within the NWA and wrestling on TBS. Carr, a program executive for TBS, was assigned the unenviable task of preparing an evaluation of the state of Crockett's wrestling shows and his own proposals on how to improve them as a television entity. Carr was a affable young redhead who had grown up a wrestling fan, and now he has a key role as supervisor over the content of the programs. He doesn't like a lot of what he saw. Just as many hardcore fans and newsletter subscribers have been suggesting, he saw a lot of sameness to the Crockett shows and was critical of the lack of competitive matches on virtually all shows. Even NWA Main Event, which had promised in its early weeks to be a shining light of Japanese television, had faltered miserably as Crockett's financial woes grew. Eventually, Carr's study was translated into a 42-page report. Frankly, after comparing the NWA shows with the style of the WWF, Carr believed the program sorely needed to move out of the TBS studio, but he knew that would increase production costs. Further, he felt the 11 a.m. Saturday morning slot was nothing more than a throwaway show, which needed at least one competitive bout and one action-oriented angle a week to attract new viewers. Quote, people aren't going to tune in if they can predict what's going to happen before they turn the set on. All of their shows just look alike. Carr knew he would be stepping on the toes of the egotistical senior producer / booker Virgil Runnels. But if TBS was to own the company, changes would have to be made. Little did Carr know how he would soon become embroiled in the middle of a situation which would lead to him being unfairly blamed in some quarters of the departure of the lead voice of TBS wrestling since 1985. So he's going to turn in this big report, and apparently he even commissions a study on his own and goes out and polls fans to see what they like and what they don't like, sort of test audiences, if you will. And we've seen this a lot whenever someone wants to release a big product or service or movie, they'll show a control group and then get the feedback and make adjustments from there. And Eric Bischoff did this early in his WCW tenure and came up with a lot of changes. Well, one of the things that they're finding here are some things that they want to do differently with the wrestling. And I just imagine, and it's always been that way, and you sort of alluded to it a minute ago, if a non-wrestling person comes in and says, hey, here's what we need to do to quote unquote wrestling people, that is not always going to be warmly received.
No, it's not, but it can be warmly received if you present it right.
And you're saying Carr presented it in a know-it-all fashion?
Exactly. And was this Steve Beverly writing again?
Yes.
Okay. Affable. What did he call him? How did he describe him?
Young and affable.
He was not affable. He was not friendly. He was not, he could have got so much done. And you know what? I agree with, we're making it a TV product now. We're moving from an infomercial to bring people into the arenas to a television show. And I get that. In that course of moving, you have to use some data. You have to do some research. Bill Shaw told me years ago, back during the Eric Bischoff era, he said, the Turner people, you say research, they'll put as much money into research as you want. So I believe in the research. However, I believe if you're going to present the research and you realize you're going to be pushed back, you can present it in a better way Jeff Carr did. He was an arrogant prick. He was. And the fact that he thought he knew it all about wrestling, you can think you know it all about wrestling, but you can swerve. I shouldn't use that word. You can present it in a different way. It's all into presentation, buddy. And his presentation was the shits, much like this video we're watching right now. Little tracking problem here or whatever it was.
By the way, I'm glad they're still showing it though.
Oh yeah, I am too. Looks like Randy and Dennis have, I don't know, these big bowls on their head, cups made out of gold.
Let's let's talk a little bit about where we are just in context of, the touring schedule, because this is something that's going to matter, to say the least. You're still a big touring brand.
Right.
And even this day, this is Thanksgiving, by the way, when this is taped, as we said, matinee show. But then that night you're at the Omni. The next day you're at the Charlotte Coliseum. You stick around there to do back-to-back days because the following day you're in Greensboro. But the day after that, you're back in Atlanta for a matinee. And that night you're in Richmond. And the next day, Macon. And the next day, Vegas. And the next day, San Francisco. But Dusty's last show is the Greensboro show. And then he's going to have some substitutions. He'll pop back up in time for the TV tapings we talked about, Seasons Beatings, Clash of the Champions on December 7th. And he's back on the road, hitting the big towns, Richmond Coliseum, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He even hits Dorton Arena. So he's making live events, and that's going to hang around until January. And just a few days before his performer contract comes to an end, the 24th, he's going to leave and not go to Vince, which I think in hindsight, everybody just sort of glosses over the fact that he went and tried to do his thing in Florida. And that's actually, believe it or not, where he debuted. Dustin was down there. And, anyway, he's a little ways away from going to work for Vince, but there's so many moving parts in this era, man. Nikita had been such a big part of the company, and he quits just a few days after this show we're watching right now. And Arn and Tully are gone, and Boss Man is gone, and Dusty's about to be gone. And it's just the winds of change, man.
Oh yeah. Business changed drastically. And again, my thought was at this time that there was no way the business could succeed under Turner Broadcasting. And one of the reasons I thought that was every time we went to do anything at the Turner Studios, there was always something to delay us. Something went wrong.
Give me an example. Production wise, you mean?
Yeah. Production wise.
Okay.
JR, I don't know if JR talked about this in his book or not, but during this time I would come in I would come into Atlanta for 8 days, and he would come into Atlanta for 8 days, me from Charlotte and he from Dallas. And we would stay at the Hampton Inn down near the airport together. We would room together. It's well documented. We were roommates. We would go into a studio, and this is not with the fans, not with the wrestlers, but we would go into a studio to shoot a 1 hour main event, the main event show that aired on Sunday nights.
Yeah.
It would take us all night to do it, to shoot the leads. And I remember sometimes Tommy Edwards would say, you guys need to go have some dinner and we'll be back. A 1 hour show would take us all fucking night. We would go in the back there, and Tommy would be arguing with his tape guy, who was Dominique. You would always hear Tommy say, God damn, Neek. Now I understand that equipment and editing was different back then than it is now.
Oh,
obviously.
Yeah.
So it took longer, but they just didn't know what they were fucking doing. They didn't know what they were fucking doing. And it's not a rip on Tommy Edwards. They just did not know what they were fucking doing. And I remember thinking, boy, this is fucking chaos. And I don't want to be a part of this. I just didn't get a good feeling by going to those studios that these guys knew what they were doing. Now, that doesn't mean every one of them. That just means generally. And they would bring in, different cameramen that work for Turner Broadcasting every week to run these big studio cams. Not the same people. Vince used the same people. It was just,
and that's a big deal. Me and you haven't talked about that, but you got to know how to shoot wrestling.
Yes.
And if you're smart to wrestling, you can figure out like, okay, here's where I need to be and here's what's coming next, and don't miss that. But if you're not a big wrestling fan and you haven't spent a lot of time watching it, I can only imagine how difficult it would be to shoot something when you don't know what's coming.
Well, that in mind, one time they brought in a punter for, I think, the Miami Dolphins, and it may have been Rick Roby. That, for some reason, that name sticks in my mind, Rick Roby. They brought him in, and Tommy got on the PA. So we want to welcome one of our special cameramen here today, punter for the Miami Dolphins, Rick Roby. And he was on one of these cameras, and he waved to everybody. And I'm thinking, just anybody can come here and be a fucking cameraman? And that's what it was. That was like, to me, it was like for Turner Broadcast, oh, it's just wrestling. We can put anybody out there to run a camera. And so that to me, that just always rubbed me the wrong way. And that's one of the main reasons when you think of all the reasons that I left, that was one of the main reasons that I left. Because of that, because it was just wrestling. Let's put in a cameraman.
Well, let me ask, are you too far in the bubble? Because I mean, you came in kind of hot saying, I knew this company wouldn't survive under Turner Broadcasting because they had some production snafus, but goddamn, it couldn't survive under Crockett's tutelage either. They're going backwards. They're hemorrhaging cash. They're losing money. They're bankrupt.
I agree with that.
But you're just saying,
no-win situation. It was doomed to fail.
But maybe to your point, it didn't have to be either or. There had to be another option.
Yeah.
What would you like to have seen differently? Well, is there a change they could have made that would have worked out better?
I can't answer that because, again, even Kevin Sullivan said Schiavone was upset he never ran the company. I don't know what it takes to run a company. I know what it takes to be able to deal with people, to handle people, to be able to make everybody happy about their working environment. But as far as coming up with ideas that would make the company better, Eric Bischoff was the man to do that, not me, because he lived for shit like that. I didn't. I very much liked staying in my lane, so to speak. So so to answer your question, I don't know what it would take to make the company successful. I don't know.
I'm not asking to be argumentative. I'm just legitimately asking, like, do you think,
and I'm legitimately telling you, I don't know.
No, I get it, but I'm just saying, like, I guess I've become, listen, in a perfect world, I think they would have made the changes a year prior. Or maybe even before that. Can we agree that, boy, I'm going to take some heat for this, but, and I know we both have a great friend who's going to really disagree with this, but the beginning of the end was buying Watts, was it not?
Exactly.
I mean, I know people point the finger at Starrcade 87, but realistically they were in debt more than they knew once they signed up for Watts. And, I think JR, who that's who I'm talking about, is going to take issue with this conversation, but I think JR brokered that sale.
Yes, he
and
did.
JR said, well, they only wound up paying X. And I think that comment, and we'll dig into it, I'm sure, over the next year, was based on originally there was supposed to be one price for this deal. And then once they actually did some due diligence and started digging, they realized, wait a minute, Watts owed a bunch of advertising bills that they now inherited, supposedly major sums of cash to this station or that station, where Watts's business was failing and he was behind. But when you buy a business, if that business has bad debt, somebody's going to pay it. Now, this is a critical scene here because we know this is going to be big later. Let's track it.
Crockett, I'd like to just say one thing. We'd like to say to everybody out there, thanks for all the hate mail you've been sending us. It's quite an inspiration to us. Matter of fact, it inspires us to hurt, maim, and disrupt lives more than we already have. Now let's give some credit due where credit's due. Lex Luger and Sting, we never underestimated you as physical specimens. We just underestimated what you had between your ears to back it up. So we found out that you're not any stronger or bigger than we thought. You're just a little bit smarter than we thought. Our mistake. But when we make mistakes, we always compromise by doing something about it. And what we're gonna do about it is in Greensboro tonight, we're gonna rip some stinking face. And it ain't gonna be ours, it's gonna be yours. And there's one thing that will always remain different between the two of you and the two of us. We simply don't care. You know, the other night in the ring, I heard Animal hit Sting, and he made a sound like it hurts. Well, you ain't heard any sounds come out of us like that, because if it did hurt, and sometimes it does, we ain't gonna let you know about it. The other thing different between you and us is we got these and you don't. Tell him, Animal.
Yo, Dave Crockett, I heard I got a match December 7th against Dusty Rhodes, right?
That's correct.
Dusty Rhodes, you seem to forget. We ain't doing this sport just like you had. Your credentials speak for themselves. You got a long history of wins against great opponents. But we made a name for ourselves by beating legends just like you. So you're gonna find out what I'm all made of December 7th, and you ain't gonna like it one bit. Oh.
All right, Paul. He's just walking away without saying a word. Paul Ellering, the World Tag Team Champions. They leave us. We don't know what, you heard Animal talk about the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. That match is going to take place December 7th. Talk about the American Dream. Here he comes. Hey, Dusty, he was out here just talking about
something about this old Texas boy right here. You've been coming out here week in and week out talking trash. Let's don't wait till Chattanooga, Tennessee, Daddy. Let's don't wait till December the 7th. If you want some of the dream, the legend, if you will, in public, come on out and get it right now.
All right, Dusty wants him. Dusty said, Animal, if you want him, get in the ring. Here comes Animal. All right, you want him so bad? You want him, go get him. All right, it's going to break down right here. They're not going to wait till December the 7th in Chattanooga. Big Road Warrior Animal, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. This is like a street fight here. He misses with a clothesline. Rhodes to the far side, catches Animal with a clothesline, and he's trying to choke. Well, that's 2-on-1, Tony.
Well, you knew it would happen, Jim Ross. You knew good and well with all the Road Warriors here that it would be more. And all of a sudden we see Animal. He is taking off one of the spikes. He is taking off a spike. And he has hit Dusty in the head with it.
He just hit Rhodes right in the face.
Oh, my goodness.
God, he's put it in his eye. He's put the spike in his eye.
He is jabbing him in the eye, or has, with the spike. He unhooked it from his shoulder pads or whatever it was, and he's jabbing into Dusty's eye. He's opened Dusty up.
Oh, my God. They're trying to put his eye out.
This is
They're
horrible.
sticking that spike right in his eye. The Road Warriors, they are trying to blind him. They stuck that spike right in his eye. Rhodes is bleeding. But you can hear him screaming, Tony.
He is in a tremendous amount of pain. And, you know, Jim Ross, the first thing I thought of when I saw this was that maybe this great career has come to an end. We got to get out of this. We'll be right back.
Hey, that's fucking badass. We just agree.
That's a fucking great angle, man.
I mean, I know that, it's going to be criticized and there's going to be major fallout, but as a wrestling fan, that's fucking awesome.
Sure. But Jeff Carr probably hated it.
He loved it. Turner didn't want blood, Bubba. Here's the thing. I think, the research had shown, and I only know this because we just did that Hurt interview over at adfreeshows.com. But Turner had decided, all of this research had shown him, hey, the major difference between your revenue and their revenue is their ability to sell to kids. And so you've got to have something to sell to kids. And so Herd's going to get action figures going, and they're going to create a comic book eventually. And they're going to start to do some of the stuff that the WWF had been doing for a long time with, Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling and LJN figures, and then Hasbro. And I mean, listen, all the things that Vince had already figured out, this organization had yet to figure out. And the difference was those kids were able to get their parents to buy them shit.
This has always been more catered towards adults.
Right.
And some people would say, yeah, but I like that. That's better. Well, not when you're running a business. Black ink is better than red ink. So it doesn't become about kids versus adults. It comes about red versus black. And I understand that. And so if you've got a big bloody scene, maybe you're not going to let your kids watch it. And maybe you are going to alienate some advertisers, and they're trying to get big deals going with, some major consistent advertising. And if they've got bleeding on a Saturday morning at 11 a.m., they probably don't want any part of that for their M&M Mars bars or whatever the shit. But wow, as a fan, it's fucking awesome.
Oh yeah. It's a great angle. Man. And it was a great interview by Hawk too, man.
Dude, all of it was good. I thought Hawk did a great job. Animal did a great job. Dusty did a great job. And then holy cow, the spike angle, it became a big tape trading dream. I mean, every tape trader I know loved that shit. Loved it.
Rick had Teddy cover the guy that he counted him.
That's funny, isn't it?
It is. He played the goofy big jock better than anybody.
So Dusty, even though, they know that, there's been a transfer of power, if you will. Turner owns the thing now. Jack Petrick is the boss. Everybody knows that. But Crockett's running quote unquote wrestling operations, if you will. And Dusty's the head booker. So this obviously cost Dusty his job, November 30th. So this was filmed on the 24th. It aired on the 26th. The phone calls poured in, on the actual day of that Saturday, the 26th, that Sunday, the 27th, but there's a ton on the 28th. So they actually get together. And, that's the reason Dusty missed the shows, by the way, in Vegas and San Fran. He's going to have this all come to a head, and he's no longer the booker. And you got to imagine, and I know that you're not going to like this, but you got to imagine Flair's in the background chirping, saying, yeah, get rid of him. He wanted me to lose to Rick Steiner in 3 minutes. Fuck him.
Yeah.
Get him out of here.
I would agree with that. I don't mind that one way or the other, but I agree with that. You're probably right. Now, whether Rick chirped it out, to everybody in the backstage area or just did it to himself, I don't know. Again, I really need to make this clear to you. And I think you know this, but to everybody watching, we were out there in the studio,
right?
Everybody else was backstage. We weren't backstage. And by the time we got backstage, everybody was gone. So if there was any political maneuvering or anybody talking shit or anybody doing some stuff,
you weren't in the room to hear it.
No, I wasn't. I'm laughing at the Rick Steiner thing.
Let's track it here.
Alex with me. I like to keep an eye on things.
Okay, well, good for Alex. What exactly does Alex tell you?
He only talks to me and I just listen to him.
So I can't hear Alex at all.
You can't hear Alex at all.
Well,
want a kiss?
No. Okay, fans. Rick Steiner and the big match is on its way into Starrcade.
I can't wait. I'll beat him.
And you can beat Mike Rotundo, right?
Rotundo.
Whatever you say. Whatever you say.
Thank you, Tony.
Okay, there it is from Rick Steiner, certainly on his quest for the World Television Championship. More right after this timeout.
Can you believe what the fans are chanting?
Retardo.
No.
What were they chanting?
Retardo.
Oh, is that what he was saying? Retardo.
Yeah. You should stop saying it now.
Okay. I will. That's the word he was chanting. Let's go back to JR.
Oh, let's track Jim Cornette. Here we go.
Heard what Paulie Paulie dangerously said, let me tell you something, Paulie. You don't never in your life have to worry about a kid running up to you saying, are you my daddy? Because even if a woman would, you can't, brother. Ladies and gentlemen, I present, Accept No Substitutes, not the original, not the extra crispy, but the real. Beautiful Bobby and Sweet Stan, the Midnight Express.
How about that? Even if a woman would, you couldn't.
And he held his finger up straight, and then he gave a crook. As if it was smaller or limp.
What are you talking about?
You know what I'm talking about.
What do you mean?
He was talking about Paulie's
penis.
Yes.
Well, anything else you want to touch on? You know, this is such a big show because, you know, and I know that a lot of people are going to say, oh, what's the big deal? They replaced the Booker. Well, here's the big deal. The guy who created all the great shit that you remember, Great American Bash, War Games, Starrcade, on and on and on. It's no Moss now. He's no longer, he's quote unquote, just a talent. And he's here for less than 2 months and he's gone. This is a major, major deal. And I feel like for whatever reason, fans really gravitate to the importance. And maybe it's because he was world champion, but people talk about Flair's departure from here as being a major happening, whereas Dusty's maybe not so much. I think it's the exact opposite. I think Dusty's is even more impactful because yes, Flair was the top star and had the best interviews and had the best matches. Nobody's arguing that. But Dusty's fingerprints are on every segment of the show, right?
Oh yeah.
Well, I'm glad we had this discussion.
Well, no, here's my thought on all this. I think what we're seeing here is the beginning of, in many ways, maybe not the actual beginning, but the beginning of many ways, the wrestling product changing from an arena business to a television show. JR was a big proponent of that. I remember JR would complain to me because we roomed together about having better matches on TV. In other words, he didn't like all these job matches or enhancement matches. With Bobby, just tremendous. And this was a product of Jim, who was a syndicator and went out and selling the show to TV stations, thinking that we should have a more competitive TV show. And I came from basically the arena business where I thought that we shouldn't show them everything on TV because I always thought in my head, if we show them everything on TV, why would they want to come to the arenas? Clash of Champions, perfect example.
Yeah.
Why would we show them that?
Yeah.
If we want them to come to the arena. And JR always thought more and more on TV. So I think, you know, and I understand where JR was coming from because again, he sold TV shows. That was his thing. And he was the best at it. But it was two schools of thought here. And I think where we're seeing is the beginning of the TV show being the thing itself and not the arena business. Now the arena business would end up supplementing. And I know Eric very famously said we should forget about the arenas completely. There was a guy named Bob Dew who thought the opposite. Now we know what they've become. It's the TV show and it's not the arena business. And I know COVID has had a big impact on that in the arena business, but still, I think what we're seeing is really, if you go and you do a diagram of important shows that has brought the business into the new era, this would be one of them. Am I right?
Yeah.
You agree? So yeah. Bobby Eaton. Oh, it's amazing how great he was in the ring and how rough he looked, but how in real life he was one of the nicest men and still is ever.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. A gentle soul.
Yeah. Jim Cornette tells the story of a guy out in front of a convenience store, looking for money. And Bobby not only brought him money, he brought him in the store and bought him stuff and had his arm around him and asked him if he's going to be okay. And that's what type of person Bobby was. Look at that fucking Alabama jam.
Bobby Eaton is a sweet man.
Yes, he is.
He gets a lot of respect for his in-ring work, but outside of the ring, nobody ever had a bad word to say about that guy.
Nope. Not at all.
And you can't help but wonder if somebody sat him down, gave him a makeover and a duffel bag full of steroids, what Vince McMahon might have done. Here we go. Big interview here.
Just a minute ago. I followed their career since they got in the wrestling profession. They put a lot of guys in the hospital, but never with a foreign object, gentlemen. I think we're a little
Jim Ross,
one step beyond.
What you want to do right now is hand that mic in our face and shut your stinking mouth before I put your eye out with my stinking fingers. Hey, animal, what you got all over your hands? I got the dream's blood. Ain't that the American dream come true? We didn't even feel like wiping it off or clean off. We just want to live in the gloriousness of it. You know, some people call their dog Spike. Football players spike the football. And people spike drinks. But some people, namely us, spike dreams. And that's what we're all about.
Well, I think we need to take a look at the situation one more time. It's a horrible situation, but let's take a look. It happened earlier on this program.
Talk about the American dream. Here he comes. Hey, Dusty, he was out here to talk about
something about this old Texas boy right here.
How crazy is it too? This segment gets them in trouble, but they don't know how much trouble they're going to be in until it actually airs. So they air a replay in the same show.
Mm-hmm. I guess they're going to show the whole thing again, right?
Did you know this was coming at all? The Spike angle?
No. Again, I'm outside now. I'm trying to find where Dusty, I think the blade was in these.
It's in his jeans. He digs it out. You can watch him pull it out, and then he's holding it. It always made me wonder, like in those situations where if I've got the gimmick, right, but I'm trying to hold it like I got a fist, like I want to punch, but here you are stabbing me in the eye. Why am I not going to be swinging at you?
Yeah.
Like, hey man, I got to fight you off. You're trying to take my eye out. I'm not just going to sit here and wait for it to happen. I mean, the great shot, seeing Animal unscrew it.
Mm-hmm.
Lord bless Animal. But if you were really trying to stab a guy, wouldn't you hit him Spike first instead of the other end? Yeah. Now he gets to business, but you see it's in Dusty's right hand right now.
Right. I saw him reach down these jeans for it. Sawing away a little bit. Mm-hmm. And
like right now, Dusty should be fighting for his freaking life.
Should be, but that's now he's going to really saw away. But that's if he's fighting for his life.
I like this scene here where the camera backs up. That's a little thing, but I don't know. I thought that when we watched it a minute ago, I saw it for the first time in a long time. That was really, really cool.
Yeah, the Turner people
track it.
Us, if anybody's got any doubt if this is real or it's not, take a look. That ain't plastic. Dusty Rhodes, your first mistake wasn't even making a challenge to me. Now maybe you had a chance with both your eyes, but you don't stand no chance at all with one eye. Don't you ever call yourself a legend, come out here and take advantage of that, because I ain't gonna back down from no man. December 7th, I am gonna finish the job. You may have no eyes at all. Dusty Rhodes, I think it's time for you, like you said before, lay this body down, and maybe your time. We're gonna find out December 7th. No, we come from the streets, and on the streets, you do anything to win. Dusty Rhodes, I got a new name for you, Popeye. Popeye Rhodes.
Well, I'm sure you have something to add to this. You're happy, I'm supposed.
What we saw was Darwinism at its finest, survival of the fittest, and Dusty Rhodes, what goes around comes around. Now we're going to have a charity for you, Dusty Rhodes. A charity for your eye, and all your fans can send the money to the Legion of Doom, and I'll make sure you get it.
Tony, I don't know what we can add to that.
Well, like we said, Dusty has been taken to the hospital. We don't know the seriousness of the injury. David has gone with him, an official of the NWA, and hopefully next week we'll be able to report on the situation on Dusty Rhodes.
We certainly will. And fans, we'll be back with more exciting action right after this.
A hell of a promo, hell of an angle. Yeah. If you're a wrestling fan, my goodness.
Yeah. You know, one thing I noticed is that, especially when they came out and did the interview before the Dusty interview, you couldn't follow this interview. I don't know why they tried to follow it with this, but one thing I noticed is the fans, even though they were heels, they were still cheering the Road Warriors.
Because they're badasses.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
How cool was it, by the way, when he stabbed the podium?
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was such a cool line. He says, "You want to know if this is real?"
Mm-hmm.
Ram.
Boom. And it just stuck there, and Tommy Edwards got a good shot of it too. Yeah, we really upped the ante on violence, didn't we? Oh boy. It's amazing. It's just amazing to me now, just how wrestling has changed. And I guess it's like anything else. Society has changed. Just amazing. And when I think about all this, I'm glad I was a part of it.
Oh God, how could you not? What a major moment in wrestling.
Yeah.
And you're right in the middle of it.
Yeah. Let's look at it this way. Suppose I would have started as like a TV announcer in the 60s and would have gone through the 60s and the 70s and even the 80s. And maybe this would have been the end of my run. I would have not seen all of this. I would have not been around to see Turner take over, Turner go belly up, Vince be the only promotion, independent promotions, independent wrestlers become, because of the internet, sensations, a new company starting like AEW. I've seen a lot of transitional things in pro wrestling that I'm very happy to say that I saw. Now, I was out of touch for 17 years. I get that, or 16 years, but still I was around for a lot of it. So it's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah.
In many ways. Bobby and Tommy.
Some great wrestlers here, boy.
Oh, you're not kidding. Now they are taking on the Cruel Connection, who, by the way, the Cruel Connection also were the Gladiators, I believe, the same guys that did the job to the Mulkeys a few years prior to this. Gary Royal being one of them.
Mulkey Mania, baby.
Mulkey Mania. As a matter of fact, Gary Royal was the guy that ended up doing the job to the Mulkeys. Yeah, boy, this is a hell of a show to watch, Conrad.
Absolutely.
We've watched many things, and we've shit on many things. We've laughed at many things, and we were entertained or not entertained in many things. But to watch something like this, that is a big point in the direction of pro wrestling, I think is pretty fucking cool. That may, you know what? That may also be George South right there in a mask. That may have been Gary Royal and George South. I have to ask George if he donned the mask a couple of times.
Well, I'm sure he did.
Yeah, just knowing how to take a bump, probably it would have been George. But anyway, so good stuff.
I hate that this all happened the way it did. If you had a time machine and you could go back and change one thing in wrestling.
Wow, that's a tough question.
I'm not saying that you're going to be able to give me an answer, but one of the things you would at least consider would be, hey, let's change a decision or two from Crockett in 87. And maybe we can avoid some of this craziness of 88.
Yeah. One thing I would have brought in is a marketing merchandising person. I mean, today in 2020, worst year in mankind's history. Today in 2020, marketing and merchandising are a big revenue stream.
It's the whole deal.
I don't know how big it was back then, but I know Vince was making money on it. We weren't.
Right.
So that's one of the things I would do. But you can't come in thinking you're a fucking know-it-all and brush people the wrong way like Jeff Carr did and like Steve Beverly did when they brought him in. You just can't do that. Well, you can, but you shouldn't do that.
I was going to say they kind of did. So
yeah, they did. I mean, and so what happens, you know? Are they still involved in wrestling? Either one? No.
Well, neither were you, motherfucker.
Well, yeah, by design.
Oh, I forget. Everything's your idea. You said, you know what? I'm done with WCW.
My life is my idea. Yeah.
You said, I'm done with WCW. Let's just shut it down.
No, I didn't say let's shut it down.
Well, you said it was your idea. You just said it was your idea.
What, to shut it? I did not. You're lying again. we went through this whole great show talking about some serious shit, and at the end you become the lying motherfucker you are.
Now you're just being hurtful.
Yes. I am.
Why are you speaking in anger?
You know, you must be getting ready to do something with Eric because you're getting salty. You're warming up with me.
Yeah, you're right. I gotta get ready. You know how Eric is.
Yes, I do.
Eric will just, man, the other day, this is a real story on our podcast. So here we go. Let's track it here.
Okay.
You know, I want to tell everybody out there that that's where we won the United States belts for the first time. Right there in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Eddie Gilbert and Ron Simmons, you guys are two tough customers. And I want you to remember that that's home for the Fantastics. And we plan on walking out with those United States belts again. Tommy, you want to talk about Dusty? I know. It was something else to see out here.
That's right. Bobby and myself have been in wrestling quite a long time now, and we've never seen something just as disgusting as what happened right here on TV today. And we just like to tell the Road Warriors one thing: with one eye or no eyes, Dusty Rhodes coming after you, brother. That's and right. I wouldn't want to be in your shoes.
And we'll see you next week on World Championship Wrestling.
There it is. Producer Virgil Runnels.
Mm-hmm.
Won't be seeing that many more times.
Nope.
Any other names you see here jump off the page?
I remember Alice Arth, who was the video font girl. I remember some of the cameramen. I think Timmy Smith was a cameraman there. I'm not so sure Ricky Lassiter was at that time, but they were around for a long, long time. Yeah, a couple of those names that I remember. But anyway, you were talking about Eric.
Oh yeah, it's really weird. The other day I was like, we're talking about a TNA show, and I said, Eric, I know this isn't exactly your cup of tea. You don't really like these kind of gimmick matches. One of these monsters ball matches where they're pulling out all the stops and being extra violent, you know, barbed wire and tables and chairs. Oh my. But we've got Abyss here and Rob Van Dam. The fans are way, way into it. They got a great rating in the newsletter, insert rating here. And it was, the fans were hot for it, chanting, "This is awesome," and blah, 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 blah. What'd you think? And he says, you know, Conrad, back in 1974, I had a Swedish friend and his name was so-and-so, and we went to school together, and, he was very, very Swedish. Anyway, he introduced me to this fish, and boy, it was a smelly fish. And he tells me this story of this fucking species of fish that his Swedish friend liked to eat in 1974. And that was his answer to me asking what he thought of Monster's Ball with barbed wire bats and tables and chairs. And it was a story about smelly fish from 7 years before I was born.
Do you think Eric needs to go see the neurologist?
You know, what's funny is, and I'm not kidding, that same episode, he said, "Oh, I couldn't possibly answer that. We need Prevagen to sponsor this podcast." And I'm like, "What'd you say?" Because I had no idea what the fuck Prevagen was until your old ass started talking about it. And as a matter of fact, I need to stop talking about it because they're still not sponsoring this show. And they're not sponsoring next week's show either, which is going to be December 8th, 1997. This is the peak of WCW's NWO versus Sting storyline. It's going to come to a head in a few weeks. And in this era, Crow Sting is of course making his appearance from the rafters, And on this particular night, they do a stunt where they send a dummy dressed up like Sting straight down from the rafters through the ring. It's going to go through the ring. And this is, of course, 1997. So before Owen had his terrible accident. But my goodness, what a spectacle it was. We're going to watch that next week here on the show. We'll be back the following week to watch the go home edition of Nitro for Starrcade 98. On Christmas Eve's Eve, we'll watch Starrcade 98, and then we'll wrap up the year laughing at Bill Goldberg nearly down thunder when he punched a limo and severed an artery. And thankfully disaster was averted. No, he continued to wrestle, unfortunately, but he did live, which is good news, I guess. And Tony, it feels like right now it's about that time.
Yeah, fans, World Championship Wrestling here at the here on the set. Tony Schiavone talking to Jeff Carr and talking to Steve Beverly, and we're discussing now the wrestling, how it's going to change in the years, and your opinion, Jeff, and your opinion. Wait a minute, the music hits, and coming out from the curtain with a big shirt that says "I'm a Lie" is Conrad Thompson. Boy, he's going to fuck up this great interview with a lie at the end of it. You lying motherfucker! We're desperately out of time. We'll see you next week on What Happened When. On Wednesdays, we drop on Westwood One, but Mondays, we come to you only on
Patreon, patreon.com/WHW Monday. And who could forget adfreeshows.com.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.